killing in Minnesota triggering nationwide protests. Now the message of protest marchers is morphing into policy demands. A group of pastors today calling for very specific changes to address racial inequality in Jacksonville. On Your Side, Haley Harrison was at the courthouse earlier and spoke with them about when these changes should happen.
Yeah, that's right. About a dozen local pastors are kind of following the lead of other local organizations and making their own list of demands that they would like to see be made in order to bring an end to racial injustice.
We urge our city officials and civic leaders to take the necessary steps to heal the racial divide.
The local religious leaders are demanding a number of different things, including asking Mayor Lenny Curry to condemn the actions of Minneapolis police officers involved in the death of George Floyd and reviewing the arrest of local pastor Delane Smith at a downtown protest 2 weekends ago. They also want the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to immediately create a citizens review board and begin cultural sensitivity training for all officers, as well as publish the percentage of black police officers by position and rank.
Every time we brush racism under the rug, what happens is that the lump gets larger. And it's important for us to make sure that what happened in Minneapolis will not happen again.
The pastors acknowledge that some of these changes may take time, but others can and should be made now. Now, according to one of the local pastors, they wanted to bring these demands to the community first, but they will be directly bringing these to those addressed in this letter. Live in Jacksonville, Haley Harrison, First Coast News, On Your Side.